Captain Bill Meyerholt flew his F-105 straight through the FLAC, held the Bullpup missile on course with a tiny joystick, and watched the warhead hit the bridge dead center. The explosion blackened the steel. When the smoke cleared, the bridge was still there. Pilots on the strike would later compare the effect of a 250-pound Bullpup warhead on the Thanh Hoa Bridge to shooting a BB gun at a battleship. That was April 3rd, 1965. Over the next 7 years, the United States would throw 871 combat sorties at this one structure. 11 aircraft would go down. Airmen would die, eject, burn, drown, and rot in prison camps. The bridge would not fall. It sat 70 miles south of Hanoi, where Highway 1 Alpha and Rail Line Number 4 crossed the river, funneling every truck, every train, every ton of ammunition heading south toward the Ho Chi Minh Trail through a single 540-foot choke point. The Vietnamese called it Ham Rong, Dragon's Jaw. The original French colonial span had been destroyed in 1945 when Viet Minh guerrillas drove 2 explosive-laden locomotives together at mid-span. North Vietnam spent 7 years rebuilding it, finishing in 1964, when Ho Chi Minh personally walked across the new bridge and dedicated it. The engineers had overbuilt it on purpose, a central reinforced concrete pier 16 feet in diameter. Steel through trusses anchored into the rock of Dragon Mountain on one bank and Jade Hill on the other. Additional concrete piers added at both ends. This bridge had been designed by people who expected it to be bombed. Before we continue, I need to ask a small favor. Cold War Impact is a small military history channel, and recently our reach and views have dropped significantly. If you enjoy well-researched history videos like this one, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing the video. Every interaction helps the channel reach new viewers and allows me to keep making these deep dive documentaries. Now, back to Vietnam. The weapon that finally broke the Dragon's Jaw was not a heavier bomb or a faster jet or a classified prototype. It was a bolt-on guidance kit that cost less than $3,000, designed in 6 months by a Texas Instruments engineer named Weldon, who had been told he had almost no budget and no room to fail. But to understand what that kit meant, you first need to see what happened when the most powerful air force on Earth tried to destroy one bridge with everything it had and could not leave a dent. Rolling Thunder Mission 9. Alpha hit the Thanh Hoa Bridge on April 3, 1965, the largest single strike package of the early air campaign. Lieutenant Colonel Robinson Risner led it. He was an 8-victory Korean War ace, commanding the 67th Tactical Fighter Squadron out of Korat Royal Thai Air Force Base. The strike force numbered 79 aircraft. 46 F-105 Thunder Chiefs carried the offensive load, 16 of them armed with 2 AGM-12 Bullpup missiles each, the rest loaded with 8 750-pound general-purpose bombs apiece. 21 F-100 Super Sabres flew flak suppression. 2 RF-101 Voodoos handled reconnaissance. The Bullpup was a miserable weapon for this job. The pilot had to fire the missile and then continue flying toward the target in a shallow dive, steering the round with a joystick and watching a flare on its tail, all while anti-aircraft guns tracked him. 32 Bullpups hit the bridge that afternoon. So did roughly 120 iron bombs. The bridge took superficial damage to the road surface and was open to traffic within hours. An F-100 and an RF-101 were shot down. The next morning, April 4th, 48 more F-105s went back with bombs only. North Vietnam was ready. The 921st Fighter Regiment, the Red Star Squadron, scrambled MiG-17s into the strike force. Flight leader Tran Hanh and his wingman Le Minh Hoan each shot down an F-105. Major Frank Bennett and Captain James Magnuson were killed. These were the first confirmed aerial victories by the Vietnamese People's Air Force, and Hanoi celebrated them as a landmark triumph. Captain Carlyle Harris was also shot down that day, likely by 57mm guns that crews had repositioned overnight. He ejected, was captured, and spent 8 years in Hanoi's prison camps. Inside those walls, Harris taught fellow prisoners the tap code, a system of rhythmic knocks on concrete that became the only lifeline for men held in solitary for years at a time. 2 days of strikes, 127 aircraft committed. The Dragon's Jaw had not moved. The core problem was not willpower, it was accuracy. Freefall bombs in the mid-1960s had a combat circular error probable of 250 to 350 feet. Most of them either missed the bridge entirely or passed through the open trusswork and detonated in the river. The Bullpup's warhead weighed 250 pounds. The central pier it needed to crack was 16 feet of reinforced concrete. No amount of courage could close that gap between what the weapons could do and what the target demanded. And the target kept getting harder. By late 1965, the Dragon's Jaw was ringed by 5 air defense regiments. Anti-aircraft calibers ran from 12.7mm heavy machine guns through 37 and 57mm rapid-fire cannon, up to radar-directed 85 and 100mm heavy batteries that could reach aircraft above 20,000 feet. A-2 surface-to-air missiles covered the outer zone. MiG interceptors patrolled above that. The defenses were layered so that low-altitude ground fire pushed attacking pilots upward into the medium flak, which pushed them higher into the missiles and fighters. Over the course of the war, roughly 104 American airmen were shot down within 75 square miles of the bridge. Authors who studied the campaign called it the most heavily defended target on Earth at that time in human history. Desperation bred invention, and invention failed. In May 1966, the Air Force launched Operation Carolina Moon, floating 5,000-pound pancake-shaped mines down the Maar River from C-130 Hercules transports flying at 100 feet above the water, hoping the mines would drift beneath the bridge and detonate magnetically. Major Richard Reimers flew the first sortie on the night of May 30th and dropped 5 mines. Reconnaissance the next morning showed no damage. On May the 31st, Major Thomas Case flew the second mission. His C-130 was shot down. All 8 crew were killed. A diversionary F-4 Phantom was also lost with both crewmen. 10 men dead for a concept that never worked. The program was abandoned. When President Johnson halted the bombing in October 1968, the ledger read 871 sorties flown against the bridge, 11 aircraft shot down in direct attacks, and more than a dozen aircrew dead or captured. 26 of the 27 bridges targeted early in Rolling Thunder had been destroyed. The Dragon's Jaw alone remained standing. And then the bombing stopped for over 3 years. 5,000 miles from the Maar River, at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, the answer had already been taking shape. Colonel Joseph Davis Jr. ran a weapons development office there and had been shown a laser seeker built by Texas Instruments for a completely different purpose. Davis looked at it and asked whether this technology could guide a bomb precisely enough to hit a specific point on a bridge. Engineer Weldon Word said yes. Davis gave him 6 months and a budget under $100,000. Word delivered. The Paveway was a kit, not a new bomb. It bolted onto a standard Mark 80 series bomb body. A laser seeker in the nose picked up energy reflected from a target that a second aircraft illuminated with a laser designator pod. Canards near the nose steered the bomb's fall. Fins at the tail stabilized it. The bomb rode the beam down to wherever the laser pointed. By 1968, the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing at Ubon, Thailand was testing Paveway in combat. A Mark 84 fitted with the kit achieved a circular error probable of 20 feet, with nearly 1 in 4 drops landing as a direct hit. An unguided bomb of the same weight missed by an average of 447 feet, with a hit rate of 5.5%. The Paveway kit cost about $3,000. 7 years of failure at the Dragon's Jaw had been a failure of accuracy, and accuracy was now something you could bolt onto an existing weapon for the price of a used car. North Vietnam's Easter Offensive on March 30, 1972, brought American air power back under Operation Linebacker. The 8th Tactical Fighter Wing returned to the Dragon's Jaw. On May 13, 1972, 14 F-4. Phantoms attacked in clear weather. Colonel Richard Horne, the wing's director of operations, led the strike. They carried 9 3,000-pound laser-guided bombs, 15 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs, and 48 500-pound conventional bombs to suppress the anti-aircraft positions. The designator aircraft painted the western span with a laser. The guided bombs rode the beam down and hit within yards of the aim point. The western span was knocked completely off its 40-foot concrete abutment. The superstructure twisted so severely that rail traffic stopped entirely. No aircraft were lost. 7 years of conventional strikes had not brought down a single span. 14 jets carrying precision munitions ended it in one pass. North Vietnamese crews tried to repair the damage, as they always had. On October 6, 1972, 4 Navy A-7 Corsair IIs from the carrier America finished the job. Commander Don Sumner of Attack Squadron 82 led the flight. 2 aircraft carried improved Walleye, 2 guided bombs, 2 carried Mark 84 general-purpose bombs. They hit the center piling and broke the bridge in half. The Dragon's Jaw was struck from the target list and never carried supplies south again during the war. Within 3 months of Linebacker's start, the Air Force had destroyed more than 100 bridges across North Vietnam using precision-guided weapons. Of the 10,651 Paveway bombs dropped in 1972 and 1973, roughly 48% scored direct hits. An in-theater survey concluded that aircraft armed with laser-guided bombs destroyed over 20 times as many targets as the same number of aircraft dropping unguided ordnance. A revolution in air warfare had arrived, and its proving ground was the bridge every other weapon had failed to kill. Risner survived the war, but not the way he had planned. Shot down over North Vietnam in September 1965, he endured 7.5 years in prison camps and was released in 1973. He retired as a brigadier general. Harris, captured on the second day of strikes against the bridge, came home the same year after 8 years as a prisoner. The tap code he taught inside those walls outlived the war and is still part of military survival training. Tran Hanh, who shot down the first American aircraft over the bridge on April 4, 1965, rose to Lieutenant General and served as Vietnam's Deputy Minister of Defense before his death on December 1st and December 5th, 2024. Weldon word never became famous. Neither did Joseph Davis Jr. They spent 6 months and less than $100,000 building something that made 7 years of sacrifice and 871 failed sorties obsolete overnight. The Paveway led to the Paveway 2 and 3, and those led to the GPS-guided Joint Direct Attack munition that entered service in the late 1990s. When the Gulf War came in 1991, precision weapons made up just 7% of the bombs dropped, but delivered the majority of confirmed kills. Every guided weapon in every conflict since traces a direct line back to a kit that was designed to solve one problem at one bridge on one river in North Vietnam. The Dragon's Jaw did not fall because someone finally sent enough firepower. It fell because someone changed the question. For 7 years, the question had been how many bombs? The answer turned out to be how accurate. 20 feet of precision, $3,000 per kit, and a bridge that had humiliated the most powerful air force on the planet broke apart in a single afternoon. The span still stands today, patched up after the war, carrying local traffic beside a modern replacement. But what happened there did not stay there. It reached forward into every cockpit and every weapons bay of every air campaign fought in the decade since. And it started with one engineer, one colonel, and a 6-month deadline that nobody in Washington was paying attention to.